Assalamu alaikum. Good morning. Today is July 11th, 2021. Welcome to Wall Street to Bay Street Sunday Chai with Sherry Portfolio. My name is Nadeem Mian.
And my name is Shamil. Get your chai ready and let's get into the news.
Let's go.
So to start off today, sorry Nadeem, I know your Montreal Canadiens are out, but it was a good run, good year, good year overall for Canada as a whole in sports. So going into the markets here, speaking of Canada, the TSX was down 0.04% this week. The S&P 500 up 0.53%, the Nasdaq up 0.29%, and the Dow Jones up 0.56%. So kind of, moving off that, why don't you give us a little bit of information on kind of how the global and domestic markets have been doing?
Sure, yeah. So, I mean, it was a shortened week with the July 4th holiday in the US. So, most global markets, when US markets are kind of closed, also have a quiet session. But in any event, the 4-day week was still pretty active. We did have a pretty big, I would say, a sell-off on Thursday, and a lot of that had to do with some of the fear around the Delta variant and how that might be a risk to the global economy. We also saw, in Japan, the government of Japan announced that there would be no spectators at the upcoming Olympics. And at the same time, they declared a state of emergency because there's been a little bit of a rise in COVID cases. So overall, I think, and that does kind of speak to the markets. In fact, even the San Francisco Federal Reserve Bank President Mary Daly, in an interview with the Financial Times, did kind of point out that some of the low vaccination rates in some other countries, not really so much in North America, but definitely in some of the other countries where they have low vaccination rates, and at the same time you have the spread of the Delta variant, could cause some risk to the global economy. So I think some of that news did spook the markets, where there's this kind of memory that, oh, what if there's some future lockdowns or things of that sort. But having said that, there is with the COVID cases, North American markets are trading close to all-time highs here. Whereas if you take a look at some of the Asian indexes, specifically, for example, like the MSCI Asia ex-Japan index, that index actually hit, I think it hit its May low, this week. So, and that might again speak to the case of what's going on in the coronavirus and the vaccination.
Awesome. And kind of a parallel from that, there's been some news with our friends in China. So why don't you kind of elaborate a little more on that?
Yeah, sure. And basically, the Chinese government is cracking down on some of the companies where their stocks that are trading in the U.S. So this would kind of speak to some of the companies, such as what they're really called are ADRs, American Depository Receipt. So an example of that would be companies such as Alibaba, Baidu, Tencent. So these are basically companies that are domiciled or have operations in China and Hong Kong, but they do have a listing on a U.S. exchange, such as New York and Nasdaq. So the government basically was coming out and saying that they are going to be there's going to be some update or some oversight that they're going to start looking at in terms of just looking at some of the restrictions and some of the cross-border activities between some of these Chinese companies that have businesses in China but are listed in the US. So that did cause basically a lot of weakness in these Chinese ADRs. And if you take a look at some of the Chinese ETFs, for example, that do invest in these Chinese ADRs, they are down quite a bit. In fact, we're talking about maybe some of these ETFs being down over 30% since the high in February.
Awesome. And so we also have some news based on the North American job numbers. So could you maybe shed some light on that as well?
Yeah, sure. I mean, so both in Canada and the US, we did receive some job numbers here. Specifically in Canada, 230,000, over 230,000 jobs, 230,700 to be exact. Stats Canada revealed that, they announced, new jobs in the month of June. This was obviously a pretty good surprise. The market was expecting the economists on Bay Street had an expectation of about 175,000. So it was higher than what the market had expected. Now, a lot of this is kind of bouncing back off of some of the weakness that we've seen in jobs in Canada, specifically April and May, where some of the provinces like Ontario, for example, were in a lockdown. So you've had this lockdown, and now with the kind of the economy opening up. In fact, Ontario is going to be opening up. I think they're going to what is it, stage 3, I think. Next week, next Friday. So with that, this is more of a reopening jobs report. Same thing in the U.S. The Department of Labor in the U.S. came out with numbers, and they added 850,000 jobs in June. That again also was better than expected. The market was expecting about 750,000. So similar story south of the border. Of course, the surprise in Canada was a little bit bigger than what it was in the U.S. But both countries are kind of saying that, kind of alluding to the same message, that this is more of a reopening type of jobs report, where the economy is kind of coming back. People are getting back to work as the economy opens up.
Awesome. And I guess our final news for today is, our favorite season is coming up. And I'm not talking about fall. I am talking about earnings season. So why don't you kind of go over that? And do you have any comments about that or anything?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, the markets have done well, over the past 12 months, and earnings have also kind of done well, in the sense that earnings have bounced back from last year. So earnings and the markets have kind of been acting the same way. But second quarter earnings do kick off next week. And we got a lot of the financial companies like JP Morgan, Bank of America will be reporting next week. And I think earnings of the S&P 500 are expected to be up about 65% compared to a year ago. Again, these are based on Refinitiv numbers. When they poll the analyst. And so this is obviously going to be, I would say, an important quarter, in the sense that the market might want to see that earnings growth is kind of keeping up with the growth that we've seen in the stock market. A lot of the bigger technology names are going to be reporting towards the end of the month. Of course, that is that is obviously a big component of the market, technology. So I will say, yeah, it's definitely going to be top of headlines as far as what's going to cross investors' mind for the month.
All right. And yeah, so that's kind of all the information and news we had to go over today. So once again, thank you for joining us. Our Sunday chai as usual. If you have any other questions, feel free to put them in the comment section below. And if you haven't, check out our app. It's called Sharia Portfolio CA. And once again, for myself and Nadim, we'll hope to see you guys next week.
Thank you. Assalamu
Nadeem Mian, Portfolio Manager, registered as an advising representative, and Shamil Devji, Financial Advisor, registered as a dealing representative with Sharia Portfolio Canada Inc., a portfolio manager registered in the provinces of Ontario, British Columbia, and Alberta. Their opinions and statements expressed in this show are their personal opinions and do not necessarily reflect those of Sharia Portfolio. They are effective as of the date of this broadcast only and are subject to change. This discussion is for general information purposes only and is not investment advice.